Taken. He wanted a cure. He found the creator.
Chapter 18. Fallen. Temuro pushed back the dense undergrowth as he crept silently through the woods. He stifled a curse when the lesser he'd brought along bumped clumsily into his back. Blast it, Sharoth. Watch yourself, you stupid oaf. I knew I should have come. These lessers are more trouble than they're worth. Temuro rubbed his throat absently as he moved forward. It still ached from Lord L's little demonstration. Well, I deserved it for letting that ogre Moloch get the best of me. Next time I'll be ready for his deception. Sharoth, move! Temuro pushed the lesser toward a clump of bushes just outside the road leading to the city of Nod. Sharoth limped toward the bushes, but not before he felt a sharp pain in the back of his head. Ow! Me! Stop, stupid! Not those bushes! Temuro gestured toward a different cluster. You didn't have to hit me! Sharoth lumbered to the large line of thorny shrubs. Keep it down, fool! I hear something. But Temuro! Sharoth cried, rubbing his arms. These are prickly. These are prickly. Shh! Shut up, or I swear I'll crack your skull next time. Sharoth obeyed, but his red eyes filled with hatred. If you get a next time. Azam sifted through the dense undergrowth, forging a path for Delmar. The hum of chickadees and a hooting owl added to the symphony of the night. Azam hoped the sounds of the forest creatures, searching for their evening meal, would cover the noise of their approach to the city of Nod. Of course, no son of Adam would discern their footsteps, but if some Jaza had placed any of his men in the woods, that was different. Azam, what do you suppose happened to Anami? Not what, Azam whispered as he stepped over a dry branch. Who? Only the beloved can cause a change like that. You've seen that display before? Delmar asked. Not firsthand, but I heard. Azam stopped suddenly and raised a finger to his lips. The pale moonlight emphasized the golden glow surrounding him, but with his coal-black features he seemed a part of the night and his aura a misplaced ray of light. He pointed to a cluster of thorny bushes about 10 lengths ahead, motioning for Delmar to move. Delmar nodded. He saw it too. A pair of identical in the darkness. Without a word, Delmar took the lead position and disappeared before Azam's eyes. Azam could no longer see his friend, but he could feel him moving forward. He followed, taking advantage of the shadows. He could assume human form and, without his aura, be virtually invisible himself. But that would make him susceptible and weak. He couldn't afford either right now. Azam wrinkled his nose. He reached for the auru leaves tucked inside his cloak. Azam focused his thoughts on Delmar. Use the leaves, Delmar. He hoped his friend heard. Delmar pressed the auru to his face and breathed deeply. Azam's sword glimmered just before slicing thorny shrubs. A voice cried out. A contorted mound of flesh, sallow and gray, lay writhing on the ground. Delmar stepped back in surprise. Sharoth, get up, you fool! Another voice said behind him. Get up and greet our guest. But Temuro, he has a sword. Azam flinched. Delmar hesitated. Azam never flinched. Temuro took advantage of the split-second delay, drew his sword and pointed it at Azam's temple. To what do we owe the honor of a visit to our woods? Temuro spoke just inches away from Azam's ear, said, staring straight ahead. Sharoth snickered, moving clumsily as best as his curved back would allow, to an upright position. I would save the laughter for better times if I were you, Delmar said as he revealed himself and the blade now pointing at Temuro's neck. Ah, Temuro said, lowering his sword at Temuro's neck. Ah, Temuro said, lowering his sword. It seems we are even. Yes, even, Azam said, is a good place for explanation. It's a bit early for you to be harassing souls. Why are you not in Sheol as ordered? First of all, Temuro snorted unless we decide it is in our best interest. Lord L has given us free reign of this wasteland. We have a right to be in this forest or anywhere else for that matter. Why are you here, Watcher? Our business is no business of yours, Fallen, Azam said sharply. The name's Temural, Azam, or have you so quickly forgotten your comrade? Without notice, the singed creature standing before him with sunken eyes and sallow skin transformed into the likeness of the glorious ones. A brilliant display of light washed through the stillness of the trees, casting shadows. Only the sudden twitch of Azam's eye revealed his surprise before he resumed his usual stoic gaze. What's the matter, Azam? Temural savored his discomfort. Do you really believe we have no light of our own? Azam stared straight ahead, silent. Too bad you can't rid us of your stench as well. Delmar whipped his blade out again and pressed it into Temural's neck. At once, Sharath produced a spike club and swung it toward Delmar's head. Azam intercepted the blow with a slice from his sword and sent Sharath tumbling to the ground. Delmar never moved. Temural flickered, wavered, and then faded under the pressure from the creature was greatly diminished, even pitiful. You know there's really no need for such violence, Temural said. Our victory is at hand. If I were you, I would put that silly dagger away and pray that I will forgive this insult when Lord El assumes his throne. There is no victory for you, Satans. The prophecy has been spoken. Ah, it has at that. Temural took advantage of the split-second hesitation to leap to a dangling tree branch. He hung from it now and smiled. But if the seed is spoiled, the prophecy is useless, is it not? What do you mean, Fallen? A cackle disturbed the leaves overhead as Temural disappeared. You'll see, Watcher. Temural laughed in the distance. You, Azam said, thrusting his sword toward Sharath, who still cowered at his feet. What is he speaking of? I do not know, glorious one, Sharath whined. Look at me. I am the lowly servant. The rulers do not share their plans with me. Azam stared deeply into the Fallen's eyes, studying the malformed creature sniveling on the ground. He replaced his sword in his sheath. Get up, Azam said gruffly. Get out of here before I change my mind. The awkward figure stumbled into the night, hurried after his master. Why did you let him go? Delmar asked. You know he was lying. The mercy of the beloved stayed my hand. Destruction is not his will this eve. Azam readjusted his concealed weapons. Maybe later, Azam said solemnly as he walked toward the city. For now, let's see what evil the fallen have wrought in Nod. The Neshpanel had left for Nod well before first light, careful to follow Enoch's instructions, observe the ways of Cain's tillers, and bring word of Nama's well-being, unseen. They had did his part, observing a full day's labor in the fields, memorizing every detail until he could recite them by heart. Exciting. Did you slay a wild beast? Did you rescue a daughter in distress? His little brother Danny would bombard him with questions when he returned, demanding a valiant tale of a day in the life of a Neshpanel. He would not disappoint. Somehow he would make lying on his stomach next to piles of dung in the blazing heat sound thrilling. Methuselah touched the tender spot on his forehead again and winced as he remembered his outburst. He had tried to apologize to his father privately, but it was hard to catch the bearer alone. He applied a thin layer of the Medicis paste to the throbbing wound. He looked over his shoulder to see if any of the other scouts noticed. The Neshpanel were too busy stuffing their pockets with heads of grain as they crept through the cultivated rows to pay him any attention. Methuselah walked ahead of the bead. He appreciated his father's connection with the one mind and all that, but why did he have to give him a name of impending doom? Surely that had been a mistake and the source of needless teasing. Any time he was ignored was a blessing. Finally, the pack caught up with him. Come to, Methu, patted Methuselah's head. How's the wound? Fine. Still alive, no? The pack leader took a swing at Methuselah's face. Methuselah dodged the jab easily and kept walking. I am fine. You hear that, scouts? He called the others, mocking. He's fine. The Ender has spoken. Looks like we all live to see another day. So did you accomplish your task? Methuselah changed the subject. Of course we did, Ender. They all laughed at the jest. Well, how is Nama? Methuselah said. The bearer said we must ensure her safety. No need for concern, the pack leader said smugly. Nema is completely guarded by the... I see, Methuselah said, and you don't think that's a problem? That's the trouble with you, Ender, the rowdy scout said. You see misfortune around every bend. Me, I see possibilities. The daughters of Cain were most beautiful. There is no need for us to avoid them. We were sent to scout, not court. To scout, not court, Methuselah said, dashing up the trail to the Father Tree Tower. I hope you brought evidence. Right here in my pouch, the leader said, scooping out a handful of grain. I hope you discovered their methods. Right here, Methuselah said, tapping his head. Suddenly, the pack leader dropped his sack and plowed into Methuselah. You think you're so smart just because Enoch is your father. Methuselah pushed back with all his might, swinging punches. They were surrounded now by Neshpanel chanting. Methuselah knew this was the fight they had all been waiting for. He finally took the bait and gave the pack leader another solid jab to the gut, just before he was maneuvered into a chokehold. Ho! Medici Tafara came running out of the Father Tree Tower. Everything okay here? All in good fun, Medici Tafara. The pack leader released Methuselah. A good scout knows how to spar, right, Methu? Yeah, sure. Methuselah rubbed his throat, without straight at the pack leader, slicing off a chunk of his hair before hitting its mark in the tower behind him. A good pack leader should also know when he's being followed. The Neshpanel unpinned the groaning figure from the Father Tree. Looks like someone needs to do less sparring and more scouting. Zohar! Methuselah snatched the bag of Alru from him. You dare steal? The pack leader grimaced, shoulder slumped, as he examined their captive and tied his arms with a rope. Unbind my arms, Zohar yelled, twisting at the constraints. You have no right to detain me. I only want what is rightfully ours. Rightfully yours? You have some nerve, Methuselah said. Call the elders. So you're giving orders now? The pack leader bristled, snatching the stolen bag from Methuselah. The elders are at the Cave of Treasures, Medici Tafara said, mounting her forerunner. I will send for them. Take them to the vault, the pack leader commanded. Remember what happened to Father Seth? As I command, Methu, the pack leader said, before I finish what I started. Before Enoch could leave for Avonland Forest, he was summoned again, first to the Cave of Treasures to meet with the council privately. Urgent business, they said. Enoch had no sooner adjourned the session when Tafara arrived, breathless as usual, and told him the council was needed at the tower. Again. Urgent, she said. What next? Enoch muttered, trudging back to the storehouse. Being the bearer was more work than he'd realized. We cogs in his hand, bearer. The pack leader strutted over to him and saluted. The young scout dropped the evidence at Enoch's feet. I alerted the elders of Cain right away, and the elders of Seth are waiting for you at the tower. That was quite unnecessary, Enoch said as he picked up the sack and followed the scout. There was no need to bring them to our tower without... You trying to woo the maiden, Seth? Lamech jeered at the elder's black mane. Give up, old man. 'Tis no vanity. Father Seth rubbed his hand across his ebony hair. Just the benefits of obedience and Alru. Well, where is he? Tubal Khan examined the tower. I appreciate the treehouse, but some of us work for our bread. We would be more than happy to judge your thief. Enoch signaled to the Neshpanel on the upper decks, but we thought you might want to atone for his trespass before his offense causes more trouble. Trouble? You're the instigators. Tubal Khan lunged at Enoch. You sent scouts to steal our methods. You're the thieves. Enough, my son. Lamech restrained Tubal Khan with a forceful hand. Ignore his envy. We are above such pettiness now. Father Lamech gazed upon the storehouse and clasped both hands behind his head. Let them have their revenge. It's all they have. Tower's layout. I say we tie the fool to the tree and lash him here and now. Indeed, serves him right for rebelling, Lamech said. The Neshpanel dragged Zohar into the clearing, untied his arms and legs, and ripped the bandage off his mouth. He toppled to the ground. What do you have to say for yourself, boy? Toppled to the ground. What do you have to say for yourself, boy? Tubal Khan asked. Stand up. Zohar struggled to pull himself upright. He babbled incoherently. Speak like a man, boy. Father Lamech said. Zohar drooled. His smile was silly, his eyes empty. What's wrong with him, Sandals? I told you not to put him in the vault, Methuselah said. Father Seth ran a hand over his hair. How long was he in the vault? Only since last eve, the pack leader mumbled. Last eve, Father Seth said. The hour was too potent for... Zohar, speak! Tubal-Cain shook the youth. Zohar, speak! Tubal-Cain shook the youth. Zohar giggled and fell again. He's an idiot! Lamech spat in the boy's face. Zohar whimpered and curled into a ball. Enoch examined the young man. His face was tender. Coarse hair now curled in ringlets. No, more like a babe. Tubal-Cain grabbed Methuselah and pressed a dagger to his throat. A son for a son, I say. Leave him be. Enoch brandished his own blade. Everyone stepped back, honoring the challenge. Methuselah struggled to free himself as Tubal-Cain drug him by the neck, keeping him just out of Enoch's reach. A trickle of blood dripped down Methuselah's neck. His eyes rolled back. Enoch lunged toward Tubal-Cain. Fire coursed through him. Be still, the voice said. Enoch froze. Zohar was crying now and sucking his thumb. Methuselah gagged. Finish him, Lamech shouted. Tubal-Cain squeezed harder. Methuselah's body went limp. That's my boy! Over the youth's shoulders, head first to the ground. Methuselah used the burly man's weight against him as they wrestled. They toppled over each other as Methuselah repeatedly maneuvered himself on top, pinning Tubal-Cain. Finally, the brawny man lay on his face, heaving with his arm held behind his back. Methuselah grabbed Tubal-Cain's dagger and jumped off, allowing the bigger man to stand. They circled each other, standing off. Every Nesh Panel came out of the tower, watching. Tubal-Cain panted, dripping with blood. Minor cuts dotted his frame. Methuselah was dirty, but fine otherwise. A dagger sailed over Tubal-Cain's head. Methuselah caught it and threw both his daggers over Tubal-Cain's head. The feathers off Lamech's headdress fluttered to the ground. That was low, Enoch said, catching the blades, even for you. 'Tis that fool prophecy again, Father Lamech said. The Ancient One spares them for greater judgment than we can give. Father Lamech turned to leave. Wasted enough sun here. What about Zohar? Tubal-Cain gathered the youth into his arms. Take that crybaby to his mother. Father Lamech said. Serves him right for disobeying his elders. One by one, the Nesh Panel congratulated Methuselah. Good fight, Methu, the pack leader said. Never seen Tubal-Cain, the pack leader said. Never seen Tubal-Cain bested. Another one patted him on the back. Can you spar with me, Methu? Another asked as they returned to their duties. Methu, wait. Enoch pulled him aside and hugged him tight. Don't tell your mother, he whispered. Not a word, bearer. Methuselah saluted and ran to catch up with the other. Peered down the trail, jostling like a sack over Tubal-Cain's shoulder. 'Tis a shame about the boy, Father Seth said, picking up the stolen sack. But thieves get their just reward. And a man must reap what he sows, Enoch said. Light surged through him again, illuminating the evening sky. Indeed, the elders agreed. Chapter 19. Bitter. Music drifted from the plains of Nod. Cymbals clamored for attention over the pounding drums and clapping hands. Laughter tinkled along with the timbrel. But Lita moved like a deaf man. The music, the fragrant smell of fatty meat, the colorful robes of the people jostling him as he made his way against the crowd, brought him no joy. It only fueled his anger. Something deep in his belly turned sour. He quenched it. Must be the roasted meat gone bad. Lita, the taste of bile and concentrated. Which tent did Zillah say? Ah, yes, there. Lita moved closer toward the flap, wavering in the breeze. He could see a shadow moving about inside. He was there just as Ada said he would be. The tray was there too. Lamech. The remnant of a smile. We will see who the fool is now. Lita approached the two men guarding the door quietly. May the Ancient One show you favor. One of the men lifted a large rod with spikes and blocked the entrance. The other raised his hand and waved the man with the weapon away. It's just Lita, Eli. No need for that. What is it, Lita? A meal for Father Lamech is all. He already has his meal. Eli pointed to the tray of steaming meats and bread sitting by the door. "Oh, no, that is the wrong tray," Lita said. "Sheila and Mother Ada. They made it special just for this ceremony. It has all his favorites." Eli frowned. "The Sabasi just brought this tray. Why didn't Mother Zilla and Ada send it by them?" "They did, but the foolish girls, they are new to their duties and unlearned. They picked up the wrong tray. This one," Lita pointed toward the plates. "It only has meats and no figs. You know Father Lamech will be furious if—" "Fine," Eli said quickly, exchanging the trays. "I'll carry it to him now." "Thank you." Lita bowed and nodded as he moved backwards. "I will take this one to Tubal Khan." Lita kept bowing and nodding until he could no longer see the guard. Then he turned around and set the tray down beside the nearest tent. "This family will be glad for Lamech's choicest portions instead of the scraps for a change." Lita edged along the side of the tent, staying in the shadows until he could see Lamech's dwelling again. Mother Zilla was speaking with the guards. Her arms and hands flailed about as she gestured wildly. Eli and the other guard ran off, leaving Mother Zilla alone. She paused for a moment, staring into the darkness. Lita's heart pounded. He placed a hand over it as if he could stop the blood from racing. "Now," her eyes seemed to say, though Lita knew she couldn't see him. She grabbed the tray and took it inside the tent. Seconds later she came out, glanced around, and then strode down the beaten path leading to the center of Nod. He crept toward Lamech's luxurious abode. "This should be my night. He promised. I served him, didn't I? I did everything he asked. Yes, Father Lamech. Of course, Father Lamech. Certainly I can wait, Father Lamech." Lita balled his palms into a fist. The knot in his stomach. "Certainly I can wait, Father Lamech." Lita balled his palms into a fist. The knot in his stomach felt cold and hard now. That coldness spread through him, seeped through his veins, chilling him, calming him. All that time wasted, and now my Nema waits for honor just like Lamech. Lita threw back the folds of the tent. Lamech stood, hunched over the tray with his back to the door. "Eli, I told you not to disturb me again," Lamech said, swinging around. His hand caught the edge of the tray and sent it sprawling to the floor. "You, Lita, you fool." His hand caught the edge of the tray and sent it sprawling to the floor. "You, Lita, you fool." His craggy voice was slurred as he stumbled over the plates, still clattering on the ground. He staggered backwards, bumping into the shelf behind him. More cups, bowls, and tools fell from their places. Father Lamech's hands searched frantically for something steady. He swayed again as his eyes grew wide with awareness. Lita smiled. "Get out," Lamech said. But the command was no more than a hoarse whisper. Lita sauntered toward the hunched figure lying on the ground, clutching his stomach and sweating profusely. "Here." Lita grabbed a cloth from a basket and threw it at Father Lamech. "You're sweating like a pig." Lita laughed. "Is there a problem, Father Lamech? Should I call a Medici for you?" "I know. I should call Samjaza. He will heal you, right?" Lita laughed. He stooped down and peered into Lamech's eyes. "You shouldn't have done it, Lamech," Lita said, picking up the cloth by Lamech's face. "The guards will be back soon," Lamech whispered. "No, they won't." Lita stared into Lamech's eyes as he covered Lamech's nose with the cloth. "I'm running a little errand right now." A spark of anger burned in those eyes. Father Lamech tried to lift his arms. Lita pressed the cloth harder into the craggy face. Lamech's head turned from side to side, struggling to find air. "You may have made a better deal with Samjaza," Lita said, speaking softly into the desperate eyes. "But you'll never live to—" Whack! Lamech's head surged forward, then back to the ground with a thump. Lita fell back, holding his forehead. He stared in confusion. Pain pulsated in waves. His head throbbed. The room swirled before his eyes. He tried to sit up, but the ground was moving. Lamech's hot breath, sick with the acrid smell of Kulu, brushed against his cheek. A fresh, burning sensation pierced Lita's heart. Lamech bent over him, gasping, watching. He seemed so far away. Lita tried to reach for that, pointing at the distant figure, but cold, flowing like an icy river, sprang from his toes, traveled up his legs, and filled his belly and arms, trapping him. Finally, the cool heaviness washed through his chest, taking the pain with it. "Am I?" Lita tried to ask before he gave in to the cold tide, to the dimming, to the darkness. Lamech ripped the short knife from Lita's chest. Bright red blood oozed down his hand as he fell backward next to Lita. He tried to sit up again. "My legs! Lamech, my legs!" Lamech pounded the two useless logs with his fists until pinpricks of pain forced him to give up the idea. Lamech grunted and rolled over to his stomach instead, using his elbows to shift his weight from side to side as he dragged himself across the floor. "Help!" Lamech yelled. Was his. "Help!" The weak voice called again. "It's no use. No one can hear me." Lamech listened to the drums and the singing in the distance. It was louder now. A tear rolled down the deep, chiseled cracks on his face. "Perhaps they didn't use enough Kulu to steal my essence. Lamech swallowed. His tongue felt thick and foreign inside his mouth. He grimaced from the bitter residue of the Kulu leaves and dropped his head onto the dirt floor. His forehead was throbbing from the impact of the headbutt. "Fool couldn't best a flea." Lamech tried to encourage himself as the tingling pinpricks attacked his arms. "What was that sound? Someone gasping for breath." It was even louder than the noisy timbrels shaking in the night. "That's strange. My head doesn't hurt so much anymore." He felt light now, so light he could float away like a dandelion. Drifting with the wind. He imagined himself soaring over the city of Nod, watching the women in their best garments laughing and dancing around the huge fire at El Tava. Ada and Zillah drinking heartily while they giggled at the antics of the tumblers swirling around the people. "Father, please, Father, wake up." "Not now, Tubal Khan. The dancers are just getting started. Go tell that fool to stop groaning." "Father," the voice was persistent. Now it shook him too. "Wake up! Wake up!"
"Ah!"
Lamech growled, reaching wildly too. "Wake up! Wake up!"
"Ah!"
Lamech growled, reaching wildly for his pounding head. He shivered uncontrollably as cold liquid ran down his face, making a puddle. Lamech sputtered and spit the muddy mixture out his mouth.
"What?"
Lamech said. The shout startled him. "My voice happened."
That fool Lisa tried to kill me."
"How? What did he?"
"Never mind that now,"
Lamech said as Tubal Khan helped him to his feet.
"Give me your weapon."
"Father, we need to get you to a Medici. We don't know if—"
"Just give it to me."
Tubal Khan pulled his feet.
"Give me your weapon."
"Father, we need to get you to a Medici. We don't know if—"
"Just give it to me."
Tubal Khan pulled his razor-sharp scythe from its ceremonial sheath and gave it to Lamech. Lamech stumbled over to the lifeless man lying in a pool of crimson and heaved the scythe high into the air, swung around and smiled with satisfaction.
"Come, my son, let us go to the wedding."
El Tava stood magnificent in the grassy plain. Every trodden path in the city of Nod wove its way eventually to the gathering place of the sons of Cain. The height of the silvered stones, hewn from the cliffs of the 7 hills, stood in stark contrast to the fertile green meadow. 12 impressive pillars, standing 35 lengths tall and 5 lengths wide, formed a circle of protection below. Flowering vines grew up the length of the pillars and formed a canopy overhead. It had been Mother Azura's idea to hang long silken banners of red, purple, gold, and green from the pillars. They now billowed in the evening breeze, beckoning air and people to flow freely inside. Delmar and Azam sat on the pillar of the gold, completely unnoticed. "What are we waiting for?" Delmar asked. "We can stop this." "No, we cannot." "Yes, we can." Our mission is to protect Delmar, not to interfere. These sons of Adam need our protection more than ever. Just look at them. Just look at them. Delmar thrust an accusing finger toward the crowd below. Azam's eyes glazed over the gathering reluctantly. The mark of that which should not be had already begun. Even from his distant position in the canopy towering high above, he could see it. The darkening of the eye, and with it, lawlessness. Though these sons of Adam did not know the angelic code, the Ancient One's highest orders, they had until this point followed them almost instinctively. But this eve was different. Azam ran his fingers over the weapons obscured beneath his cloak. He grimaced, clenching his jaw, clapping, spurred them on to wild abandon. Others sat drinking bowl after bowl of Aussie, the drink of power. Right in the middle, watchers joined in heartily. Samjaza's men were everywhere. Azam knew they would be here, but his reaction surprised him. Azam clenched his saber. His reaction surprised him. Azam clenched his saber, his head reeling at the scent wafting up from below. It reminded him of another gathering long ago. Not again, he thought. You smell it too, Delmar said, pressing an aru leaf to his nose. I can tell. The celebration is becoming. It is his nose. I can tell. The celebration is becoming. It is out of bounds, Azam. You know I'm right. We should. Azam turned just in time to see Delmar slip. Delmar dangled silently, clutching a heavier branch over his head as he watched the broken limb tumble downward, tussling from vine to vine, on top, searching for the cause. Delmar almost simultaneously transformed his golden hues to imitate the evergreen beneath his palms. Azam, not possessing Delmar's gift, merely glared back and waited. What was that? Yemezarek frowned. I almost lost my drink, I did. It's absolutely... Zazel laughed heartily, taking a slug of dark brew from his bowl as he kicked the limb away. This place is just falling apart is what it is. It needs a little touch from the Elohim is all. Hazazel laughed again as he hit the rounded bottom of a young girl passing by, tearing her covering off with his grip. She squealed and ran ahead, laughing over her shoulder as she flew toward the sound of the timbrels. You sure? Yemezarek squinted at the canopy. Of course I'm sure, old friend, Hazazel said, running to catch the girl. Now stop worrying before you spoil the fun. Interesting, Azam said after Hazazel and Yemezarek went to the large tent in the middle of El Tava. I don't think they can see us. Sure they can, Delmar said. They were probably just distracted. No, Yemezarek looked directly at me. His sight is keen enough to spot an Elohim at least 5 times the distance I was from him, and we are only 5 lengths away. That's impossible, Delmar said. Even if he didn't see you, he should be able to discern your aura. Exactly my point. Think about it. Why haven't our own brothers noticed our presence, and how could a Benai be distracted? Our arrival was much too easy. I expected someone to stop. Only one way to be sure, Azam muttered, checking his weapons. I thought you said we were just going to observe. We are, Azam said, tightening his belt. But who says we can't be up close? Follow me. Delmar turned to make a careful descent down the pillar. Whoosh! Delmar felt the quick burst of air. Whoosh! Delmar felt the quick burst of air and looked over his shoulder, just in time to see Azam leap from his position and land smack in the middle of some Jaza's men. They did nothing. Right again, Delmar muttered and jumped. His feet hit the ground next to Azam with a soft thud. He tried to step aside as one of some Jaza's guards rushed toward him. Delmar put up his arm to block him. Whoosh! Delmar shivered at the sensation. The Elohim passed right through him. Did you see that? What I suspected is true. Essence in this state. Not sure it's permanent, but for now, they are like the humans. We can move about freely. But what about the fallen? Delmar waved his hand in front of the guard. If he can't see me, he can't see the fallen either, right? Probably not. What if the fallen attack them? Wait here. I'm going to find some Jaza. Azam strode through the Elohim settlement just outside Nod with ease. They were busy and blind. As he approached Simjaza's dwelling, Azam passed right through one of his own, guarding the door. The watcher had no substance whatsoever, his fall complete. Azam shivered. Only once before had he encountered such absence, such terror. It was in ages past at the great hall in Heaven's realm. Azam had entered the crowded auditorium just as the passed at the great hall in Heaven's realm. Azam had entered the crowded auditorium just as the score folded their wings and ended the anthem. "You're late." The director mouthed the words silently and glared at Azam, the only upright being in the room. The rigid instructor sent sparks of light toward his head as he waded through the sea of worshippers. Azam flicked them away with a shrug. The other spirits were mesmerized as usual. Azam slipped into an empty space and kneeled. He raised his head to gaze at the object of their affection. Immediately a strange sensation entered him. Energy intertwined with yearning and unfamiliar ideas poured into his mind. He struggled to look away. One by one he saw the citizens around him transform at the foot of their— Oh no, not him. Azam trembled at the reaction rocking the crowd into a frenzy, but he fought to hold on to his will. Leave now. Unable to stand, Azam rolled onto the floor, writhing as if drunk from power. He hoped no one would notice as he edged toward the exit. Simjaza was at the door, his arm outstretched. It took every bit of Azam's strength to crawl. No one would notice as he edged toward the exit. Simjaza was at the door, his arm outstretched. It took every bit of Azam's strength to crawl toward that hand, and he was strong. He was so tired of resisting. Wouldn't it be better just to rest a while? After all, the ancient does not know everything, does he? Who was there to prove it? The melody was so soothing, so new and reasonable, but the cold so empty and void. Azam thrust his arm out with all his might. Simjaza grabbed his hand and snatched him out of the great hall. They both stumbled as momentum and Azam's weight toppled them into the warm. Simjaza dragged him to his feet. Azam opened his mouth and collapsed. Dazzling brilliance appeared next to Simjaza and spoke. "He will be." Azam remembered the beloved's words, hopeful. He knocked on the door. 3 quick taps, followed by 2 slow. The 2 captains had always used it when they wanted privacy. "Leave me be," Simjaza said to the officer. "I have business to attend to." "Certainly, Captain." The underling brushed past Azam without a glance. Azam paused a few moments, then assumed a suit of flesh before entering. "Greetings, brother." "Greetings, brother." Simjaza smiled, waving him into the room. "What brings you my way, and with such secrecy, too? I pray nothing is amiss." "I should hope not," Azam said. "Haven't seen you on Mount Arata lately." My assignment brings me here," Simjaza said. "It is pleasant, is it not?" Azam surveyed the spacious home. The design was simple but elegant. "I suppose." Azam picked up a sketch nailed to a wall full of designs. Dozens more were piled onto a table. Dimensions, alchemy, weaponry, tools, pharmakia, and even crossbreeding. Azam flipped through specification after specification. "I was not aware our assignment included enriching the tribe of Cain." "Mere tokens of friendship to a youthful race." Simjaza sat at his desk, drafting another plate. "My comrades and I are on special assignment from the Beloved. As kind observers, we share these principles to ensure their survival, nothing more." "Seems an unfair balance." Azam picked up a tablet from the bottom of the stack. It was a ledger. The sons of Seth have their Alru, do they not? Obtained by their own efforts, not ours. Azam studied the names and quantities listed in the document. "Why is a DWB worth 3 times as much as a TF?" he asked. "That's of no consequence." Simjaza yanked the plate from Azam's hand and moved the stack of specs to a small room, latching the door behind him. Just some juvenile scrabble from one of the humans. He turned to face Azam. I thought you had some urgent need. I thought you might, Azam said. No response. Just a glitch in my spectrum. Nothing to worry about, Samjaza said. I came to take your hand. Azam discarded his suit of flesh and extended his arm to Samjaza. This planet's atmosphere can be intoxicating. Let us go home and strengthen our spirits. A kindness. Perhaps later. Samjaza shielded his eyes from the light. I have much work to do here before even the beloved himself expects me to complete this task. Azam bristled at the lie. Goodbye, brother. Chapter 20. Consummation. When men began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. Genesis, they chose. Genesis 6:1-4. Lovely. Samjaza looked over his bride with satisfaction. He wrinkled his nose at the other daughters of Eve. Even though all the women wore their finest for the ceremony tonight, none could compare to her. Nema is far superior to them. Nothing but the best for the B'nai Elohim. After that first night, the girl was resistant. She begged and pleaded to return to her father. Her weakness repulsed him. Samjaza chuckled as he remembered how he planned to destroy her after the child was born. But then it came to him in a moment of clarity. How could I have been so stupid? Of course, the girl wouldn't want to go through with it if she couldn't see her role in this great plan. I was right to change my strategy. Instead of cruelty and force, Samjaza became gentle and tender. It worked. Dear one, fear not, and do not be dismayed, for honored for ages to come as the mother of the redeemed ones. No, my sweet, you shall no longer be a lowly Sabasi, but like a goddess among women. They shall all pattern themselves after your beauty and courage. He felt the now familiar surge of power blow through him as he remembered her passionate response to his words. Her wild abandonment to his control. Samjaza fixed his gaze on her and smiled as he examined the curve of her flesh, outlined in the delicate robe fashioned just for this eve. She smiled back. Hazazel, my friend, Samjaza called, raising his hand over the excited voices in the crowded tent. Excellent artistry. You've worked wonders with the preparations. Indeed, Captain, Hazazel said. The raw materials are somewhat crude here, but with the right techniques, a most favorable outcome is possible. See what I mean? Hazazel said as he lifted the thin silk-like covering of the young woman clinging to his side, revealing a long length of leg and that which should be covered. The girl squealed in protest, then giggled. Hazazel, Captain Samjaza said, control yourself. Why should you have all the fun, Captain? No one's taking away your fun, Hazazel, Samjaza said, but there is a time for everything. When is my time? After me. Samjaza placed his hand firmly on Hazazel's shoulder. Nema will be the first. With all due respect, Captain, Hazazel said, brushing his hand away, you'd better hurry because I won't wait much longer.
Now, my good Benai,
a craggy voice said from behind.
Let there be no discord among us.
Samjaza masked his annoyance with a grin when he saw the source. Samjaza opened his arms to his bride's father and brother, who approached carrying 2 large packs. Greetings, Father Lamech, Tubal Khan. Does this sun sleep find you well?
Light of the moon this eve, now that my Nema's time has come, Lamech said. And not to worry, Honorable Hazazel, your happiness will soon be like that of your captain. I have spoken with the elders of Cain, and I'm glad to report their agreement to our plan.
Good. The news is most pleasing indeed. So I take it our little demonstration was effective, Samjaza asked.
Yes, they understand the truth of the prophecy now. They are ready to give their daughters in marriage.
Excellent. Samjaza winked at Hazazel. My comrade, your time is nigh. Samjaza adjusted the banner of the tribe of Cain across his shoulder. Dear Father Lamech, how soon might these other marriages take place?
I see no reason to delay that which is wonderful.
Father Lamech placed one of his packs on the ground next to Tubal-Cain.
That is, as long as the Benai perform their part of the covenant.
The Benai will most gladly reveal the hidden wisdom to every man who gives his daughter in marriage, but we do require a demonstration of faith.
Just what kind of demonstration do you suggest?
Let all who are willing give their daughters for consummation of the union tonight after Nama's ceremony. Father Lamech grinned as he nudged Samjaz aside.
I see the sons of God have much in common with the sons of Adam. This will be a most fruitful covenant indeed. Let it be as you have spoken. But first,
Father Lamech said, picking up the heavy pack,
allow me to bring the glad tidings to the people.
Samjaz's eyes narrowed at Father Lamech's comparison. Sons of God and sons of Adam alike? Utterly ridiculous indeed. How dare this foolish man compare my determined focus on the great plan and clarity of mind to these mere fleshly longings of these dustmen? Still, Samjaza smiled broadly and gave a slight nod. His foolishness serves me well. As you wish, Father Lamech. Captain Samjaza waved at the eager guests filling the tent. We shall begin the ceremony after your announcement. Father Lamech hefted the path as he went, not bothering to see if the others followed. The effects of the muddy Sopani mixture Tubal-Cain had forced down his throat were complete now. The horrible cramping and fogginess were just a faint memory.
Adama is ours for the taking.
Lamech beamed as he surveyed El Tava, teeming with kinsmen, and his son Tubal-Cain rushing to his side. Father Lamech lifted his large staff, the pride of his tribe, into the air, and inhaled the sweet, fragrant air, as if he could savor the satisfaction of this moment forever. The chattering ceased as they noticed the elder residing at the circle of honor. Only two lone drum beats stood out as a mischievous childling was hushed and tugged away from his father's instrument by the ear. Most sorry, Father Lamech, a Sabasi woman whispered, nearly tripping over the length of her garment in her haste. Most sorry indeed, she said again before disappearing into the crowd with the childling in tow. Father Lamech relished the moment, waiting until the noisy crowd was completely still. Then he lowered his staff and raised his voice.
Hear me, O sons of Adam and daughters of Eve. You have chosen well this eve, and the Ancient of Days has heard your cries. On this night, the fullness of the prophecy, our daughter Nama, the daughter of Lamech, a son of Cain, shall be joined with the most honorable Benai Elohim, Captain Samjaza of Son of the Most High.
Lamech paused, while a few cheers erupted from the crowd, overwhelming the sound of his voice. He raised his hand and began again.
Through this union the seed shall come. Let us rejoice and be exceeding glad this eve, for our redemption is nigh, and we shall.
This time an enormous wail sliced through the sun's sleep, cutting Father Lamech's words off completely. The longings of that song pushed the yearning people to the edge as others responded with claps and cheers and groanings unknown. Father Lamech stared wide-eyed at his people, these sons and daughters of Cain, too long rejected and outcast, too long waiting. One tear trickled down the craggy-lined face, bathed in dim moonlight, leaning on his staff. That light became brighter as Samjaza and his men surrounded Father Lamech.
And many moons have passed while we hoped for this moment.
Father Lamech silenced the exuberant shouts.
Now it has come. We shall be redeemed, but...
Father Lamech thrust his staff into the air once more.
But there are some among us who still do not believe, even though the truth has been revealed. Trust me, it saddens me greatly to tell you that our own Lita, my faithful Sabasi, lacked faith to receive this great promise.
Father Lamech perused the crowd, resting his gaze on familiar faces. He smirked when he found his wives, Ada and Zillah, hovering near Mother Zura and the other girls. They held his gaze, but inched closer together.
Unfortunately, not all have received this wondrous news this eve by the one who would have been Nama's covering had not the Ancient One revealed his wisdom to me.
Father Lamech paused while the kinsman responded. Attack an elder of Cain? 'Tis a fash too indeed. A disgrace in the face of the Almighty it is.
But the grace of the Ancient One was with me,
Father Lamech said.
and I was not overcome. Using the mind he gave me, I bested the cursed fool. See here.
With one fluid move, Father Lamech swung the heavy pack from his shoulder high into the air and pulled the covering off. Not a soul spoke as the lifeless eyes of Lita stared into the dark, dangling precariously by a long brown plait in Lamech's fist.
Lita!
Shrieked an older woman in the back before a thick, heavy hand clamped her mouth shut and dragged her up the steps of El Tava away from the gathering.
That fool of a man, oh, mother,
Lamech said, shaking his head,
with his ignorance and bitterness. Let us all learn from his mistake.
Lamech scowled at Zillah and Ada, huddled together, cowering behind Mother Zora.
Hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech. Hearken unto my, for I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 70 and sevenfold.
Father Lamech perused the crowd triumphantly, satisfied when no one else said a word.
A fool shall not be suffered who tries to darken the eyes of Lamech. May all who come against the prophecy be even as Lita is.
Father Lamech covered the bodiless head and dropped it back into the sack on the ground.
Now let us forget the sorrow of unbelief and embrace the promise to come. For the elders of Cain have wrought a great victory this eve in spite of the sons of Seth.
Father Lamech walked toward the first row of the earthen benches.
Sons of Cain, hear me now. The sons of God have agreed to receive any daughter of Eve for the consummation of the covenant during the high time of the full moon this sun sleep. In return, union will receive the hidden wisdom of the Ancient One from the Son of God, joined to his family.
This eve, a hoarse male voice called from the crowd. What of the preparations for the ceremony of union? A strong, high-pitched voice shouted from the right. There is no time to prepare coverings for all the daughters. We can't.
One moment, please,
Father Lamech said, holding out a hand in protest.
Mother Azura, do not let your heart be troubled. Not only do the good Benai grant us their presence, but they bear gifts as well.
As if on cue, two Sabasi carrying a large basket rushed forward and placed the load at Lamech's feet.
Mother Zura, if you please, come examine these garments.
The lean woman's long, thick braid fell to the ground as she walked slowly to the tray. She gently tossed a thin swath of gold cloth over her shoulder as she lifted up the fabric tightly between her hands and then stroked the length of it.
Pleasing, is it not?
Lamech said. Where did you get this? Azura asked. I have never seen any tribeswoman with cloth so fine. Not ever. Not even a wand's skill is equal to this.
Not where, Mother Azura, but who?
Father Lamech replied.
It is merely the first of the hidden wisdom to come from the Benai Elohim. They will instruct us as the Ancient One always intended.
Can they help us find food? Father Lamech prepared to answer, but stopped when he felt a strong hand on his shoulder. Allow me, Captain Samjaza said with a grin. Not only can we show you how to find food, but we know how to make it taste better. Peals of laughter spread through the crowd. That Yemezrek is a good cook indeed. Father Mahujael held his bowl in the air. His meals are better than that of us. Just the beginning, sons of Cain, Samjaza said. We can show you how to make stronger dwellings and protect yourselves from the rebellious beasts. That would be most welcome indeed, one of the elders said, holding out his maimed hand. Got that trying to gather berries from Avanland Forest. The creatures are becoming more hostile with the passing of each light. Aye, for truth, it would be good to tame them, another man said with the daughter at his side. But what about his hand? Can you do anything for that? We are skilled healers and still bear the invincible essence of the Most High. Our offspring will possess it too, Samjaza said, raising a hand. As for the rest of you, we can share the hidden wisdom that heals. Remember, your own Tubal-Khan was restored because of it. Samjaza walked the length of the platform, answering questions with ease, until he stood between Father Lamech and Tubal Khan. Finally, there was a long pause. "Well, fathers, are there any more concerns?" "Just one," a booming voice called from the rear, drawing all attention away from Samjaza. "Speak," Samjaza said, eyeing the bear of a man. "How many daughters can you take?" "How many do you have?" Samjaza laughed heartily. "Let all who are willing come." "What is that stench?" "They're here," Azam said. "Where?" Delmar scanned the crowd bustling in and out of the tent. "I don't see anything. It must be coming from somewhere else. Let's go." "No." Azam grabbed Delmar's elbow, forcing him to stop. "Look again at their faces." "Don't be absurd. I know Fallen when I see them." Delmar stumbled backwards as a young woman rushed past him and instinctively reached for an out relief tucked inside his garment. "Did you see that?" "I knew it, although I didn't expect to see it here, at least not so soon." "What was it?" Alzam lowered his voice as he focused on an older man holding a young woman who squirmed beneath his grip. "I've heard it called the darkening of the eye. I noticed it when we were on the pillars. That's how it begins. Remember the girl with Hazazel? For a moment it was there. That's why I needed to get close." Delmar looked around cautiously, trying to see what Azam saw. "I don't know what this darkening of the eye is, but that girl looked like she had two faces, and one looked like, I don't know what it was, but then it was gone. In fact, her eyes were a dark brown, so I don't know what you—" "It's not like that," Azam said, frustrated. "The darkening of the eye is not about the color of the eye. It's about what's inside the eyes. Before the dulling comes, the eyes become dark, the spark. The life inside the eye goes dim. Then finally, if the one who succumbs does not return, well, what you saw in that girl happens." "You know what's wrong with the girl?" "Yes." "What can we do? We have to stop this." "We can't, Delmar. She's fallen." "But she is just a girl. Surely there is something we can do." "She is under their control now." "You mean the face I saw was—" Azam edged Delmar to the back side of the tent. "A face you thought you saw was a fallen. But how could they be inside a human like that? I didn't think that was possible." "Why do they not merely pass through like us? They are still spirits." "True," Azam said. "But if a human allows them or embraces their signature, they can stay. They can stay inside and cling to their being as long as they like." "I suppose, but can't the girl just get rid of it, make it pass through?" "That's just the point," Azam said. He clenched his jaw and tightened his grip on his dagger beneath his cloak. "She doesn't want to." "But why not? Why would she want it around? They stink to high heavens. She would be a fool to embrace it. Anyone would." "Delmar." Azam turned him toward the girl, standing just a few feet away. "She doesn't even know it's there." "Azam," Delmar whispered, "we know it's there and we can see it." "Yes." "Can it see us?" "I don't." Chapter 21. The Beloved. The transport stream came to a screeching halt, urging its wearisome guests to depart. "I am not at fault. My ideas were better. If I were in charge, things would be different. You would be free to do whatever you want. Come with me and you will see." He droned on. "Has he seen himself lately?" someone whispered. "Who is he?" another asked. "He stinks to high heaven." That seemed to infuriate the strange one even more. The door shut as soon as the dreary load stepped away from the platform. The other travelers breathed a sigh of relief as the guest shuffled past, dragging his cacophony behind. "Last call for Justice Hall," Transport Stream 111 said once more. It paused for a moment, then zoomed into the heights, glad to resume its typical cheer. The Beloved waved the eye away with its view of Transport Stream 111 and focused on his class. Of all his responsibilities, this was one of his favorites, teaching the newlings. But more complaints had just arrived from the source. His were endless, tainting the atmosphere of Heaven's realm, so he called for an elder teacher. "I am needed at Justice Hall." "On my way, my lord," the assistant said. The beloved walked up and down the aisles, answering questions, giving directions. A student ran to him, exhilarated with color. "I finished!" "Very good. Are the results promising?" "Yes, my lord," the newling said. "Ability is perfect. I worked and reworked the patterns many times. It has no flaw." "Well done, my son," the beloved said. "Thank you, father." The newling turned ruby red and glimmered. "Check mine," another said. "I finished my work too." Soon the other little voices chimed in. "Mine is done. Is it right?" "I am sure you all have done a fine job, but we must stop for now. Duty calls," the beloved said, dismissing the eager faces. "Your elder teacher will continue your training." The little lights paused, hovering mid-air. He laughed at their obvious disappointment. "I will return to see your progress." His promise sent them skipping toward the elder teacher, chattering. The beloved allowed the records to float through his mind as he glided toward the hallowed hall. He searched the eyes of the strange one, exploring the pool where the spirit resides, confirming once again what the ancient one already knew. Null. The spark left long ago, purposefully vanquished. "Beloved, you are most fair to tolerate that one." The elder bowed as the beloved passed. "This is a hall of equity. All will be heard." The beloved nodded to the select ones as he ascended the steps to the hidden father and entered. "This should be interesting," the one mind said, hovering over the throne. The dreary fellow stumbled into the room, his bitter complaints and fiery speech, so bold at the transport station, were now little more than whines. He fell to his face, scowling all the way. "Speak," the voice bellowed, shaking the great hall and the standing ones with thunder and flashes of lightning. "You are not fair. You have wronged me. You have not kept your word. You said you would judge sin, yet those monkeys you created." A flash of lightning ignited just spaces away from the strange one. You will use appropriate language in my court," the voice boomed. He seethed, but continued. His hands trembled as he held up a small cylinder. "See for yourself. The man you favored sins, and you have not judged him. You have not punished him, yet his sin is far greater than mine." To the center of the room, clicking and swirling until the accusation appeared before the high court. They viewed Zohar tumbling out the Father Tree Tower, babbling as Enoch examined him. "The man Zohar was harmed because of Enoch." "A man is not responsible for the actions of another," the beloved said. "But Enoch is their leader. He should have taught them." The accuser pressed on. "We will view the previous record," the beloved countered, presenting a cylinder of his own. "As you can plainly see, Enoch did give proper instructions." "But when his instructions were disobeyed, Enoch did not reprimand." The sullen creature whined. "Enoch has set a bad example, yet you did not punish him as you have punished me. You are not fair." "The man Enoch has not had ample time to learn his new duties, unlike you," the beloved said. "He expressed his willingness to learn, unlike you." The beloved snapped his finger, and the cylinder folded into itself and vanished. "Enoch will have an opportunity to bring correction and express remorse within reasonable constraints, just as you had." The accuser fumed. "And if Enoch doesn't, then he should be judged just like me. If you are really who you say you are." "I am who I am." The beloved waved his hand, and the standing ones escorted the accuser out Justice Hall, back to the transport station, and out of heaven's realm. "Tis, tis," the one mind said once the commotion ended. "Such a shame," the beloved agreed. "I remember when he was just a wee little light in our first class." Enoch dashed through the grasslands away from the settee of Seth, pausing to look over his shoulder. The outskirts of the settee was faint and the sun still high. He was almost running. "If I hurry, I can make it before sunsleep." Anami trailed Enoch toward Avinland Forest, understanding why the man had left the elders in Neshpanel dumbfounded. "He looks like us Elohim, well, almost, only smaller. That's the problem." Anami adjusted his bow and surveyed the plains. The fallen might think he is one of us. Anami focused his thoughts on the human. "Run!" Enoch broke out full speed, but slowed down when the northern breeze blew something foul. Enoch held his breath as he scanned the savannah. These bloodlust beasts have nerve, hunting before sun sleep. Anami dropped low, inches above the man, and cloaked him. Hundreds of fallen were scuffling through the grasslands, heading toward the forest. He hummed a tune, covering Enoch with the fragrance of heaven's realm. "Run faster!" The sweet scent of honeysuckle refreshed him. Enoch ignored the sting of the tall grass whipping against his thighs and sprinted. Almost there. Anami raised the pitch of his soaring melody and his speed when the edge of Avonland forest came into view. "Keep up, Enoch. You must take cover." Enoch surged ahead, focusing on the horizon until he reached the forest edge, chest heaving. He walked into the shade of the woods just as the sun plunged toward Adama, and then turned back to the soft greenery covering the border. He plopped down. This would make a nice bed. Why is he hesitating? The fallen were almost upon them. Anami focused on the man again. "Enoch, you must enter the forest." Enoch sighed and turned to face the woods. There will be time for comfort later. He entered, tiptoeing reverently beneath the canopy of father trees, who seemed to say hush with their long, low branches rustling in the breeze. The cool mist of eve was already forming beneath Enoch's feet. At sun's birth it would thicken to a spray and hover 3 feet above the ground. Refresher's heat chased it away. Enoch searched the forest floor. He picked up a twig, then set it aside. He moved further in, searching. No, that's not right. Enoch selected another loose branch, then tossed it. He did this again and again. "What are you looking for?" Enoch snapped a twig in two and flung it. Nami ducked as it whizzed by his head. Enoch paced back and forth, kicking up dirt. "Some tracker you are, can't even find wood for the fire." Since the favor of the Ancient One rested upon him at the ceremony of the bearer, Enoch found it hard to concentrate on simple things. He found himself drifting, mind-wandering, longing for that other place from his strange dream. Sometimes he thought he saw people no one else could see. What is wrong with me? I used to be able to do this faster than anyone. He kept looking. A dried branch from a father tree was best for starting heaven's fire, but he was hesitant to remove anything from these elders of Adama. Enoch sighed with exasperation at the dimming sky. None of these are right, and I do not have much longer. He dropped his sack with a thud. For truth, this will just have to snap. The hair on Enoch's arms stood on end as he twisted around sharply. Enoch exhaled and smiled. It was just an old branch falling from a father tree. Anami stepped aside as the man grabbed the limb. He just snapped off the tree. Perfect. Enoch dragged the branch behind him, searching. Now I just need to find. Go to your left. Enoch looked. The rising ground led to a small rocky ledge. Large father trees almost hid the front completely, while the concave top covered the crevice beneath, and the back was solid ground packed with stone. Enoch dropped to the forest floor, sniffed, and scanned the area. Good, no tracks, no animals have made this their home. Pack over to the site and made his arrangements quickly. Within moments, he chopped the branch into a neat pile, ignited it with manta rocks, and stood back to admire the fire. Enoch dumped the contents of his worn leather pouch onto the ground and set the small jar of myrrh, the pouch of incense, and his smooth golden rod by the fire. Anami sat cross-legged by the blazing element. At least the man appeared normal again. His bright countenance had faded. Now the human was kneeling and mumbling in some odd language. Strange. Why didn't he start the fire the way he did at the ceremony? Anami lifted his bow from his back and placed it in his lap and leaned in closer to Enoch. Anami wrinkled his nose and tried to decipher the words. Sounds like he said watcher, but in our tongue. He leaned in even closer, trying to decipher the man's words, rapidly going back and forth between the tongue of Adam, the language of the Elohim, and something else. Anami sighed and leaned against the stone crevice. It's just gibberish again, but since he's busy, I might as well see if he brought it. Anami kept an eye on Enoch's back and one hand on his bow as he reached for Enoch's pack. He deftly searched the bag so nothing jostled. Even though the man couldn't see him, he would notice his things moving around all by themselves. Yes, it's here. Anami eyed the container full of the liquid with delight. Ketu, my favorite. Anami smiled. Maybe my charge can be persuaded to make some once he's... Anami's brow twitched at the sensation. Light. In one move he knelt in the second stance with bow drawn and arrow pointing toward the cause. In the next he dropped to a deep bow as the familiar surge of energy assured him this was no fallen. Anami sensed his aura shift to the multicolored spectrum. A visit from the beloved? Did I do something wrong? My lord. Rise, Anami. Yes, my lord, Anami said quickly, image of the Ancient One. Make haste for El Tava. Take Azam and Delmar to the city of Seth. Of course, my lord, Anami said with a quick bow, keeping his eyes on Enoch, who still lay face down. Did I fail? Why has my task changed? The beloved kneeled and placed a hand on the man's head. Anami hesitated. Just then the beloved looked up. Anami rushed to leave, ashamed. The rainbow swirl of light was there again. Noticing it shifted with his thoughts. Anami. He stopped mid-motion and did an about-face. Yes, my lord? Anami tried to control his flailing thoughts and the revealing colors. I like it too, the beloved said with a smile. I beg your pardon, my lord? The Ketu, I like it too. Yes, my lord, Anami responded with a broad grin just before he soared away with a flash. Anami relished the short burst of cool air in the upper realm as he sped toward El Tava. Normally he would have traveled like a son of Adam so as not to call attention to himself, as these humans unknowingly drifted in and out of perception. Be wise, be discreet. He remembered General Michael's first instructions. At times they see and at times they are blind. But since the beloved himself said to make haste, I can fly. Delmar and Azam recognized the loud whoop. Anami, they both said in unison, searching the night sky. Captain Azam, Delmar said, normally I would not approve of such. Of such what? Anami swooped down and snatched the two up at a 90-degree angle with a touch of his hands. Of such you. Delmar shifted under Anami's grip. Save it, you two, Azam warned as he scanned the treetops whizzing by. I must admit, Azam said quietly, thanks are in order. Your zest came at a most opportune moment. Really? Is that Captain Azam's compliment? Lieutenant Anami? Yes, Captain Azam. You dropped something. Anami looked down just in time to see Delmar crashing into the bushes. He descended gently, floating with his hand tethered to the captain. Sorry, sir. Captain Azam stifled a chuckle when he saw Lieutenant Delmar covered in thorns and bristles from the prickly patch. Delmar righted himself and transformed, blending in perfectly with the men guarding the city of Seth. He glared at Anami. You did that on purpose. Yemezrek jerked sideways and clutched his cup of brew before it sloshed to the ground. Wasn't that Lieutenant Anami? Chum, you must be feeling the power of this drink, Hazazel said. I didn't see a thing. No, Yemezrek said. I could have sworn I heard him. It was so clear, like he went right past me. I can distinguish a voice at least 100 spaces away, Hazazel said. I would know if an Elohim stirred in my vicinity. Too true, Captain Zamjaza said, lifting his mug to Hazazel. I only have the best in my company, and Hazazel, my friend, you are the best. Right that, Hazazel said, smacking his mug into Zamjaza's. Besides, Yemezrek, Zamjaza said, Anami's orders are to observe from Mount Arata, not gallivant around as he pleases like a power. Zamjaza surveyed the camp. Let me assure you, I do not pick up any signatures other than our own, and if Lieutenant Anami would be so bold as to break my orders, he would be punished severely. My friend, Zamjaza said, our comrades are following my instructions as ordered. There is no need for alarm. Captain Azam knows we are on a special assignment. The rest are at their posts. My senses would tell me if it were otherwise. Of course, Captain, it must be this mixture's strange effect on this suit of flesh, Yemezrek said with a laugh and a shake of his head. Yemezrek sat alone as he watched Captain Zamjaza and Hazazel return to the open tent for more pleasures with their mates. He ignored the half-clad women sprawling about inside, in plain view, and the watchers getting to know them as he went over the events again and again in his mind, recording them. The ceremony of union the daughters of Eve had insisted on ended hours ago. He'd watched with wonder along with the jubilant crowd as Captain Samjaza made the covenant with the woman called Nema. It was followed with dancing, food, the pounding drums, and rhythmic melody of the timbrel. An intense sense of excitement filled Altava. He joined in the celebration and singing gladly at first. Samjaza's triumphant glow after the consummation ignited the others. Hazazel was next. He finished, grinning like he always did after a confrontation. "Why, chums, it is wonderful," Hazazel said. Our captain has set us free indeed." Another watcher brought his bride to the tent with her father and the other elders of Cain standing around as onlookers. This happened again and again after the Elohim brought their mates forward. Yemezrek thought that perhaps the Elohim were being too excessive and that so many needn't watch. He'd asked Captain Samjaza about it. Samjaza said something about the covenant, that it must have witnesses. He accepted his captain's answer, but when Captain Samjaza asked him if he would like to be next, slapping him on the arm with a grin, he'd declined. Captain Samjaza, I'll stand guard to make sure no fallen or sons of Seth come to disrupt this plan of our father." Instead, he'd watched and recorded. Some of the women were crying now. He turned away from the pitiful moans, pulling the hood of his cloak over his head to block the view. He'd seen a few of the young girls slip away. The men had been so engrossed in the unions in the tent they hadn't even noticed. Yemezrek said nothing. That's when he saw it, the look on some of the men's faces. It was like looking at two faces in one. One face human, the other face horrible, yet familiar. Perhaps they were right to run. He looked again at a few of the brides who now curled up into balls in a heap on the floor, pleading for an end to the ceremony of union. But it wasn't that way with all the women. Some were like the first. Nema. She reveled in it and the attention. He stared at her when she wasn't looking. Samjaza had chosen well. She was beautiful. He kept gazing at her, enraptured with her appearance. Just then she looked at him and laughed. He caught his breath and glanced away. She was still laughing at him. It was there. He was sure of it. The other face. That's when he decided to take up a position near the fire, away from the others, away from the tent. Yemezrek sat by the fire and gazed toward the incline leading out of El Tava to the city of Nod. "I am glad I let the others go first." Yemezrek surveyed the area until he found him. Captain Samjaza bounded up the steps toward the pillars, carrying Nema in his arms. I could return to Mount Orata, see what the others know, maybe. Then he heard the sounds again. Pitiful moans, louder this time. The full moon moved west. Sun's birth was nigh. Yemezrek opened his satchel and pulled out of a rites he'd been collecting. He mashed them carefully into a paste and held it over the fire. Mount Orata will have to wait. These daughters will need the wisdom. This concludes chapters 18 through 21 of Taken, a metaphysical fantasy novel. If you enjoyed this excerpt, please check out the next chapters of Taken on this YouTube channel. Remember, eye has not seen, nor ear heard, nor have entered into the heart of man the things which God has prepared for those who love him. Please share this uplifting read with your friends and get ready to soar. Thank you again for listening, and may the favor of the Ancient One be on you.